All right. Good evening, everybody. Jumped on a little bit early here tonight. Try to get things going. Uh, so looking forward to a equally thrilling and exciting uh, AMA tonight, just like always. Super excited to have everybody here and going to talk about a handful of things that have been going on this week, especially for at least for data, Gamble data. Um, Handful of things. Had two videos do extremely well this week. One was the 5 skills that you have to have as a data engineer to really just get in the door, to step in the door. The other one is the 5 skills, that 6 skills that separate you from your competition. So, first one, those 5 skills, those 5 skills that you have to have as a data engineer. Just want to briefly just review those, go over those for those of you that maybe you didn't get a chance to see the video yet. Want to make sure that just want to highlight what those 5 skills are, just in case you don't know. And if you are interested, be sure that you go back and watch the full video. The link to it will be down in the description of the video after I get done. If you're watching this on a recording, if you're not, you can go to the page and it'll be um, 2 videos back. So the five tools and skills that you need to have as a data engineer just to walk in the door. So we're talking about SQL. Absolutely a must. You have to understand SQL to a pretty good extent, not just basic, but probably intermediate level SQL skills, being able to create tables, being able to create views, being able to create indexes, schemas, being able to write efficient queries that, and we'll get into this here in a minute, that are not going to cost your company $1 million in compute over a year. So SQL's incredibly important to really understand, pretty in and out. Second one, Python. I tell you all the time, Python is not something you have to jump into right away. Definitely hit SQL first, but Python should be up there in your top 5 list of things that you are going to cover to get a data engineering position. Um, Tool number 3, Apache Spark. So Spark is incredibly powerful, incredibly important, especially when you're working with big data. It really is the skill that you're going to have to be able to process big data at scale. So when you're dealing with Databricks and you're dealing with petabytes of data and millions of records, like hourly, you're going to need to be able to understand how to use PySpark, how to use Spark in order to process that data. The next one, DBT. This DBT has really come out of nowhere over the last handful of years and really provided a revolutionary platform for data engineers to use to really perform a lot of ELT. It's super SQL heavy, so it's really, as long as you have that SQL foundation, really easy to get into, really easy to understand. Hopefully I have my mic on. I've talked a bunch already, and sometimes my setting is weird. Boom, boom. Audio. Okay, cool. So, sorry. Wanted to stop and make sure that my mic setting was right. Okay. So, next thing after DBT is going to be Airflow. DLT is another one that is really important to get to know, but probably after the top 5. Airflow or Prefect, or there's a few more tools out there that are starting to evolve estuary that really do a great job of workflow orchestration. You'd also use like ADF, like Azure Data Factory, and pipelines to orchestrate your your pipelines, to orchestrate your ETL, ELT. I've also run into some patterns where we are using Databricks notebooks to orchestrate your ETL and ELT. But some type of orchestration tool to help you manage the flow of the processing of your data, to make sure that it's done in the right order, to make sure it's done efficiently, to make sure that you are getting alerts in a timely manner when things fail, to make sure that downstream things don't break, and all that. The surprise tool There's a surprise tool in those in that video, and it is a super cool AI tool. I want you to go out there and check out the video to find that out. I'm not going to give away all the secrets tonight, but if you've seen the video already, be sure let everybody else know in the comments what that surprise tool is. I think it's super cool. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to go back and check out not just the video, but that really cool tool. That I really think is going to make a huge difference for data engineers going into 2025 and beyond. Um, so those were the top 5 skills that you have to really even enter into a data engineer career. So now let's talk really quickly. I just want to run through really quickly the 6 skills that will separate you, will differentiate you from your competition when you're applying for jobs. And some of them are a little bit harder skills, but a lot of them are really going to be those softer skills, and are incredibly important in order to differentiate yourself. So those 6 skills, I keep on saying 5 because I get stuck on 5, but those 6 skills that really are going to be the things that help you get hired in 2025 when you're sitting in an interview and having that conversation. The first one is having some business sense, right? Having some business aptitude and knowledge, and how what you do relates back to business strategies and to business goals, and what you're doing provides value to how you're doing how what you're doing provides value to the business. So business and domain knowledge are incredibly important as in order to differentiate yourself from your competition when you're applying for a data engineering job. The next piece is performance optimization and cost awareness. I talked about this a moment ago. I hinted at this a moment ago, but being able to write and uh, efficient and you know simple queries is incredibly important. That when you are writing queries and they get to be more complex, and you're have 5 or 6 or 10 different joins, um, things start to get hairy, right? Things, your compute starts to go up, those joins get more and more complex, especially, if you're using left joins when you could be using inner joins. If you are writing subqueries that could be CTEs and might lessen the full table scans that are going on, make sure that you understand SQL well enough that you can write efficient queries so that you're not costing your business thousands and thousands of dollars a month in compute that may be unnecessary. So performance optimization and cost awareness for cloud computing is incredibly important as we move into the future. And will continue to be important throughout your career. Next piece is, again, we mentioned it a moment ago with airflow and and estuary, but automation and orchestration are incredibly important. Again, it doesn't matter what tool it is that you use, but having an understanding of the concepts, of the methodology of orchestration and automating your pipelines, so that you shouldn't have to come in and hit a button and hit run every day in order to run a pipeline. You should have those things automated. They should be in some type of orchestration methodology, whether you are using lambdas um, within AWS, and things are being triggered by various activities, or you are triggering them via cron jobs, or you have some type of full orchestration that is running everything that has to run for your business in order to work, maybe multiple times a day, or every 20 minutes, or whatever that case may be. So automation, orchestration, super important. Definitely one of those skills that really sets you apart when you're applying for those data and engineering jobs. Security and governance. Security and governance are things that I think a lot of, especially junior data engineers, fresher data engineers, really kind of put off. people think that security is not my job, right? From a data engineering perspective, but it is. You know, security is incredibly important. Um, for a data engineer because you're dealing with a lot of the governance type things, a lot of the things like SOC 2, depending on the industry or business that you're in. You're dealing with SOC 2, you're dealing with GDPR, you're dealing with CCPA. So understanding where and how your customer data is being stored and secured is incredibly important. Making sure that you are not exposing that data in any type of unsecure way, making sure that it is encrypted, whether it is in transit or at rest, making sure that you have security processes and um, encryption in place in order to keep that data from being exposed, and making sure that you have that governance in place so that only the people that are supposed to see it, right? um, you don't want to accidentally expose everybody's HR information to everybody else in the company. You don't want to accidentally dump HR files into an S3 bucket that everybody has access to that S3 bucket. So security, governance, those things, and understanding those methodologies behind those things are incredibly important. And again, something that will really differentiate you. And if it's a skill that you've cultivated and have, then it will be something that differentiates you and helps you to not only get a job, but also to quickly move up um, within the hierarchy of being in data engineering. So, lost my place. There's two more, and then we'll jump into talking about maybe some consulting or what of course, as always, let me know in the comments that you're here. Say hi, let me know where you're from, and let me know what questions that you have tonight. Go ahead and queue up those questions as I'm kind of wrapping this up and moving on through to a couple of other things. So we talked about security and governance. We're going to move on to communication and storytelling with data. Again, this is a video that I deep dive in. It's 9 minutes, so it's not super deep, but I really do a good job of, or I don't mean to sound so audacious, but people seem to be liking the video, and take a look at the full video. But communication, storytelling with data, again, it's something that really separates you apart, especially from other fresher data engineers. Even some senior data engineers don't have some of these skills, right? It is, these skills are things that separate you apart from really the rest of the pack. And if you continue to cultivate them throughout your career, they will continue to take you higher and higher. Especially this one, communication and storytelling. When you are talking to other stakeholders in the business that don't have the technical aptitude that you have, combining that with your business acumen and how what you're doing relates back to what their business needs are and business values and what the strategic goals of your business are for the year. That's what's going to move you from a junior to a senior into leadership, right? When you're having those conversations with upper leadership and you can talk intelligently to how what you're doing fits in with the strategic goals and strategic direction of the business, that's what takes you higher and higher. So again, communication and storytelling with data, being able to really formulate and draw a picture in people's minds about how what you're doing connects with those strategic priorities is what takes you into into higher and higher levels within your career. Next thing, APIs and data contracts. This is a new thing, right? Data contracts is a newer thing for data engineering. Again, I'm not going to go real deep into these, but be sure to check out the video to learn about a little bit about data contracts and API driven pipelines, and then there's also some some links to some Udemy classes on the video where you could go and jump into some Udemy classes to start to develop and cultivate these skills. So those were the two big videos that we did this week. Um, but the big thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is what is it really? So it's something that I've done again starting this past year that I that I had done earlier in my career was to do consulting on the side. Um, I have a full time 9 to 5 job. I do this, and I have also have some consulting that I do on the side in addition to the mentoring. Um, and it really helps to really fill out my skill sets. Really can helps me to stay on top of things from a technical standpoint, as well as really stay in communication and keep a pulse on what's going on out there in the industry. But consulting is a big deal. I mean, these skills, these even the a combination of those 11 skills that I just finished talking about are things that you have to have as a consultant too. Being able to have that communication where you could explain something incredibly technical in layman's terms in an easy to understand manner, maybe using analogies and adapting your communication style depending on the industry and the people that you're talking to is a huge asset as a consultant, because you're potentially talking to people across multiple different industries. You can't talk to a you know an owner of a construction company the same way that you would talk to the owner of a web dev company, right? It's not the same skill set. They don't those two groups don't have the same skill set, don't have the same technical acumen, and being able to adapt your skills and to adapt your communication depending on who you're talking to is incredibly handy as you're going into consulting, and honestly even as you're going into your career as a data engineer, even if you're going to be a W2 worker. um, so if you've mastered SQL, built some data pipelines, and maybe you've worked on some cloud migrations, uh, you know, but what happens when you do step out of that full-time role and into a world of consulting where things are not as maybe solid as you're used to? Uh, is it all big paychecks and flexible schedules? Or maybe there's more to the story. So those are the kind of the things I'm going to dive into here this evening. And again, as always, happy to answer any questions that you have live, and we'll dive into kind of wherever the conversation takes us. But uh, but tonight, I'm really going to be trying to pull back that curtain on what it is really like to be a data consultant. And I'll be sharing kind of the highs and the lows and the challenges, and maybe a little bit about what I wish I really knew before I started this the first time I did it, um, in 2008, which was longer ago than maybe I'd like to admit. So, let's dive into that. I know that there's some people out there, so let me know that you're here. Say hi. Uh, I love it when you all jump on and join me for these conversations. So let me know whatever questions that you have. Feel free to stop me. Okay, so quick backstory about kind of who I am and why I jumped into consulting. Um, so I started my career in 2000, so long time ago, 25 years ago now, and I didn't start out as a data engineer, right? I started out in customer service and quickly moved into a data engineering role because of a story that I've told time and time again. If you want to hear it, then you go back and watch some of the previous live sessions. But I took the initiative, did this project. The call center that I worked for identified that, oh crap, he's in the wrong place. Let's move him into an analyst role, and then from there, my career continued to blossom and take off. But I worked in the corporate world for most of my career. For the first 8 years, I worked for a small a regional telecommunications company. made some incredible connections and worked with some amazing people, both within the customer service group as well as on the business side. And and a lot of those people I still talk to today. But which is also a good thing to develop. You know, that's my first, I guess, my first lesson as a consultant, and in your career. This business seems huge, um, but you'll find that you start running across the same people over and over again. And even if you don't, you never know how somebody that you meet today is going to take their career. You never know where they're going to end up. That person that is you're working beside today may be a CTO in 20 years, and they may be the person that's able to connect you into a consulting contract or into a career decision as a director and help you move up in your career. So kind of the first lesson uh, as a fresher, maybe as a consultant, definitely. So don't burn bridges if at all possible. But anyways, so spent the first 8 years at a regional telecommunications company. Um, Moved and did my own consulting thing from 2008 to about 2011, doing website and database design, database consulting, kind of on, as a full-time role. I worked with a lot of small businesses, helped them to develop a web presence. This is when Facebook really started to become a big thing, helping people learn what Facebook is and how to set up business pages, how to do SEO. uh, Again, did a lot of worked a lot with both front end and back end consulting, because the you know data just wasn't as big of a thing then, and so I needed to pair it up with both. So from there, went back into the corporate world for another 14 years. um, for those of you that may be a little bit younger, 2008 was not a great time to start a business. Uh, the stock market took a turn, and there was a recession for a while, and then all of a sudden, health insurance, became incredibly expensive. Anyways, long story short, moved back into the corporate world, worked for a huge telecommunications company, worked for AT&T for the next 14 years, and learned an incredible amount there. uh, how to navigate corporate politics, how to do a ton of stuff as far as data engineering, and deal with a lot of messy data, deal with kind of corporate red tape when it comes to getting access to things, and how to talk to different people to try and smooth, and so you could get access to things, because sometimes that's what you have to do in a corporate environment. But you might be asking yourself at this point, after 14 years, what made me take the leap to go back into, consulting? Uh, and honestly, that was, I had moved into a director role for a while. Had a great opportunity to move into that director role. Had a great leader. Um, she really worked hard to try and cultivate uh, my leadership skills and ability. And it was something, leadership was something that I had in my past as well for a little bit. But it was revisiting that, and decided that I missed the work. And so I was like, I'm going to jump into, going back into doing some consulting. And and at this point, it was really 2020, what, two. And it was a good time to jump back into consulting. Data became this huge thing. It was incredibly important to everybody. People were doing these huge transformation projects, were doing these huge migrations from on premises to cloud, and those were skills and projects that I had just finished doing for AT&T, right? Migrating from one cloud to another, migrating from on-prem into the cloud. These were huge projects that I'd done already, had decent experience and exposure to. And so I was able to take those skills and knowledge and move into a consulting role. So that was a not so quick backstory. Um, so those are kind of the things that push me to take the leap. That and being able to again work with diverse group of businesses, to learn a little bit about different types of industry is incredibly important to me. I really enjoy the getting to jump from one industry to the other a little bit. I really enjoy uh, helping people move from you know a lot of times on premises into the cloud and really be able to revolutionize and help them to automate a lot of things that they're taking an incredibly exorbitant amount of time to do now. So I really enjoy it. It's incredibly rewarding, especially when a client is so excited to be able to not have to do a bunch of things anymore that they've been manually doing, that frees up their people's time so that they can focus more on sales and marketing. Um, but there's downside to that too, right? Because and I'll tell you that now I have a a full-time job as well and do consulting on the side, and that's again because partially because of the insurance thing with the marketplace in the US. The insurance thing is not as big of a deal as it was, excuse me, at one point. But it's still an important thing. Health insurance is can be costly. um, and there's a level of security knowing that I have a steady paycheck. But honestly, right now I also have a long-term consulting contract that is pretty consistent as well. So it works out, but that's not always the case. There's definitely, like, I have a potential consulting uh, opportunity coming up that uh, could last about 6 months, uh, and they need about 10 to 15 hours of my time. And there's that opportunity, and figuring out, can I balance that with what I'm doing now? Do I need to, is it time for me to drop my full time job again? Can I make enough to where I can have the insurance, not just the health insurance, but also the business liability insurance? And there's a lot of moving pieces there. So being able to balance all those things and learning personally for you what you can balance and what you can't, um, is something you have to deal with and decide on your own. But yeah, so that's the big thing. And sometimes it could be feast or famine with some of these work cycles. Again, the opportunities that I've run into have been opportunities that I have because of, again, the thing that I mentioned earlier about not burning bridges. I have acquaintances and connections to people that were directors 15 years ago who are now VPs and AVPs and even like COOs that I can reach out to. And sometimes there's work there available, especially right now. So many companies have gone through layoffs, uh unfortunately. And the fortunate thing for consultants and for those that may be looking at consulting is that when layoffs happen, oftentimes companies find a few months later that, oh crap, we need somebody to do this work, but they don't have the budget to go out and hire FTE. But sometimes they do have the capital to bring in consultants to supplement some of that work. So you could come in and be a fractional data engineer or a fractional, director of data for a while and help out. And and again, you get those opportunities by having those connections and building those connections over the years. So that's that's one of those things, soft skills and that ability to cultivate those relationships are incredibly important. Again, for those of you that have been here on Friday nights before, that you get drop comments down in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But I'll continue to move on. So the skills that matter in consulting, again, technical skills, SQL, ETL, cloud, data modeling, and being able to do it efficiently and quickly are really skills that as a consultant are what take you into those higher kind of echelons uh, of revenue, right? If you can bid on a project that you can make sure that you fully scoped out well, make sure that you have kind of ensured that you're not going to have a ton of scope creep to it, and make sure you have a good, solid understanding and have written a very solid contract and scope of work, and then bid on that project at a fixed rate, then, and you know that you could uh, really execute on that and do it quickly, then that is when you are going to take your profits from something that may be around what you were making before as a W 2 worker to far beyond. I mean, you can sometimes make 3, 4 times what you're making as a W 2 worker doing consulting. And those are the types of ways that you do it. Now, the problem is that you need to make sure that you write a very solid contract, that you have a very clear scope of work, so that when scope creep does happen, when something does come up that the client is like, hey, can you do this? I thought we had agreed to this. Then you could go back to your scope of work and say, it's not here. I'd be happy to add it. It's going to cost this much to add. And they'll either be like, oh, no, it's okay. Or they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's super important to me. I'll pay the extra. So, again, those are different things that you could do. Um, you know, in addition, you can do things like have a package that you sell to your customers so that you're kind of a retainer for them, and you get to let them know that you can pay me $3,000 a month or whatever the case may be, and I will, and that covers up to 10 hours of my time per month for coming in and providing guidance, for coming in and providing consulting, um, and, uh, and that kind of thing. So Ezekiel, uh, welcome. Thank you for joining tonight. Is GraphSQL used a lot in data engineering? It honestly, I don't see it a lot in the industries that I'm in, but I have a friend that he's in security and he uses GraphSQL quite a bit. Um, he's in a security company out in Texas, and he definitely uses GraphSQL. So it's not something I personally see a lot, but it is something that I have a friend that he almost exclusively is in GraphSQL. It is really in it quite a bit. So don't count it out. Great question. Thanks, man. Thanks for speaking up. Again, just like Ezekiel, let me know what the questions you have are. How can someone who just started into data engineering successfully construct their career? I mean, sometimes you work for many years, still not exposed to different technology or domains. It, Karen, that is a incredibly thoughtful and an important question. I think that probably a lot of other people out there are also wondering, and it's something that we cover a lot. So somebody starting out your data engineering career, maybe you're not in a data engineering position yet. Um, the big things are to get your foot in the door, right? Whether you're getting in, have you been able to get a career as like an analyst or a DBA or anything yet? That's just a question. Let me know in the chat. But the big thing is getting your foot in the door, right? Getting either, even if it's a QA position, even if it is even if it's a help desk position, uh, once you get your foot in the door and you're in some type of technical role, a lot of times you have some access to some data, and you could start to practice, and you could even start to kind of do your own project on the side and identify a need within the group that you get into and be like, hey, I made this and I'm able to automate this and save us 10 hours a month by automating this particular report or data set that maybe your data engineering team at your business can't get to because it is way back on the backlog of tickets and things to do, but you can start to, demonstrate those skills. Um, that's kind of how I did it. But that's a big thing is, and if you're not already in some type of position where you are exposed to that kind of data, I have somebody I'm mentoring now that he he works as a courier, and he just doesn't. There's no exposure that he really has to data, and to be able to have the time or the um, or kind of the path to be able to do a project like that. So it's important to try to get into a role where you at least can start to have exposure to data, have exposure to a database or a data warehouse, and then sometimes you have to make your own path, and by that I mean come up with your own project. The other thing is, there's definitely uh, websites out there like Upwork that you can try and bid on projects. Probably have to bid low because there's a lot of competition out there for those, but that could be a way that you get exposure as well. And sometimes it's just going out there and playing with those cloud environments. A lot of them, like Snowflake, Databricks, Azure, AWS, they all have a free tier. They all have, a lot of times 60, 90 days where it's either free or you get like a $300 credit to kind of play with the resources. What do you recommend for resources to learn more about data security? Um, so to learn about data security, one, I would go out and at least read and familiarize yourself. You don't have to know it in and out. Things like the GDPR standards, CCPA, SOC 2, uh, ISO 2601, um, and go out and at least familiarize yourself with those different um, regulations. And then also there's some great Udemy courses for data security. I'll pull them together for you, and I'll put them in the chat after our session. But there are some great Udemy courses out there for you, that really focus on data security and getting you prepared for that. In addition, you go out and get like your Security Plus certificate. You could study for and get your Security Plus certificate. It's something that I have as well, but that kind of talks a bit about security and about data security, and kind of might get you at least some exposure to it. Praying for D position pivoting from software software development engineer, SD. So yeah, I think and I'm sorry, Karen, I think we've probably chatted back and forth a little bit before about that. So yeah, I think from a SDE into a data engineer position is a great transition. I think that you have some programming skills, some programming background. So picking up like SQL and more advanced SQL and Python is probably an easier lift for you. Um, and probably will help you to transition. I've seen a lot of people transition from software dev into data engineering, so it should be an easier lift for you, hopefully, than maybe some complete freshers out there that aren't in any type of dev role right now. Hopefully, Mad Max. I'm a student in computer science, self-learned data engineer like Spark, Airflow, Kafka, Delta Lake. I have some info of the fields, but I want to have a good CV, like doing some project. Can you suggest some? Um, it Here's my suggestion. Don't do the projects that everybody else is doing. Don't go out there and get the Titanic data set. Don't go out there and get the COVID data set. Those are overdone and everybody's done them. Just do something, find something that you're passionate about. In my mentoring program that I do, uh, one of the steps that we do is I identify with you what your passion is from a just a data set type perspective, whether that be aviation, whether that be comic books, whether that be Marvel or DC, or whether that be cybersecurity, whatever the case may be. Identify what that passion is for you, and then I help you to identify where that data set is that you could get to, and then I'll write up a kind of an end-to-end data engineering project that is specific to that data set. And then but that would be my encouragement to you also. You don't necessarily need me to do that to help you through that process, but I would encourage you to do the same thing. Identify a skill set, a data set that you're passionate about and that you're excited about doing the project for multiple reasons. One, it's going to help you stay involved and keep up with that project even while you're working full time doing something else, especially if you have work that you're doing from a educational standpoint. um, and when you're in front of a interview panel or in front of a hiring manager and you're talking about that project, if you're already excited and passionate about that data, then that excitement's going to come across, and it's going to be a whole lot easier of a conversation, and it's going to feel natural to you when you're in an interview setting. So that would be my suggestion. I know it's not really specific, but that's my best suggestion to you. Amara, how are you doing? I think you're the first. I have some new people tonight. Super excited about that. I've been a business intelligence consultant for 4 years. That's awesome. Career gap of 3 years because of childcare. Find it almost impossible to get any data role. Are you actively learned Python? I've learned Python, AWS, Airflow on my own. Still nothing. Any tips for me to get back in? If you have any connections, right? Everything so much now is about networking. So there's a couple of things, right? And again, I'm going to touch on kind of my mentoring program a little bit, but because it helps. But I'll tell you that right now, one of my mentees got a DBA position, and she applied for 374 positions. She applied for 374 job recs in order to get 7 interviews. And of those 7 interviews, she got 2 offers. One was a internship offer, and it was a free internship offer, so it really wasn't a option for her. And the other one was this DBA for this international bank, and it was paying, and it has ended up being an amazing opportunity for her. So that's my first thing, is that it's a little bit of a numbers game. You're looking at about a 2 to 3% application to interview kind of ratio right now. That the things that enhance that is, again, when I'm doing mentoring, some of the first things that we do is I have an assessment that you fill out, but during our first session, I ask you to go out, find 10 job recs that you would love to apply for right now, bring them back. Let's talk through what the job recs are, and then we go through and identify any skill gaps, how you could address those skill gaps in your interview. We do some mock interviewing, while at the same time you go ahead and apply for those 10 job positions. And on top of that, go out and figure out who the recruiter is and or the hiring manager is, and send those people LinkedIn messages. Send those people LinkedIn messages that are specific. Don't make them generic, not just, hey, I applied for this position, I'm super excited about it, Make it specific. I understand that your company's passionate about X, Y, and Z. I am also incredibly passionate about that, and I've put in my application for this position. Here's my application, and I'd love for you to consider me. Make it specific. Hopefully that'll get you in. Also, if you have, again, I touched on this a second ago, but if you have any connections, if you have any people that you've worked with in the past that that are in a position to recommend you, that'll make a difference as well. Your connections are your best resources. The other thing is to try to, it- try to create a brand, right? Try to go be active on LinkedIn. Try to follow the people in the businesses, leaders in the businesses that you would like to join and be part of and get positions in, and be active in comments on the things that they post, and they start to see your name over and over again. Then when a resume comes across your desk and they see your name on that resume, their brain remembers, oh hey, this is a name that I see pop up a lot. Let me go look them up on LinkedIn, and they start to make those connections. So those are, I know, a ton of stuff that I threw at you, and I apologize, but Ezekiel, be honest, is Security Plus certification worth the time and effort? There are definitely some other security certificates that I would go for right now. I got that Security Plus certificate in 2011, so a long time ago. It was honestly part of uh, my degree when I went back to get my degree at WGU. Um, but it's honestly, Security Plus for me was incredibly easy. um as far as the effort and time, it took me like zero time. Like literally, I found out that I needed to take it for my degree, I went out and took it, and I passed it. um so so there's that. But but there are definitely some other certifications that are uh, definitely more prestigious that you could go for. Mad Max. I had an idea about a course platform that collect data and course interactions, users and instructors, but I'm lost in the execution. Can you give me a road to it in general? Um, it, Let me see what Amara says real quick. Thanks for the tips. Have to become extra active and play the number game. It is a number game, and I hate that because I know it can be incredibly disheartening and discouraging. Um, but it's a numbers game. You have to just get out there, apply for jobs, apply, try to network, try to reach out to hiring managers and interviewers. If you could hook up with a recruiter, and recruiters, get a bad rap, but my experience with recruiters is that they are they're incredibly helpful when it comes to trying to get you into a position because they have some skin in the game as well. um, Let me jump back to I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay, jump back to Mad Max real quick. Um, Course platform. I'd like to understand more about what you're talking about here. I'm not exactly clear on what you're talking about here, but if you basically, just a really high level kind of concept would be to, let me look back at your skill set here real quick again. Where'd it go? Boom, boom, boom. Spark, Airflow, Kafka, Delta Lake. Um, it sounds like you're more of a like a Databricks data engineer. Um, that being said, if you don't already have it, especially with that specific skill set that you have, I would definitely go for the Databricks data engineer certificate if you don't already have it. I would encourage you to do that. But really high level, basically, if these are APIs that you're hitting, or that you get hit to pull this data, then I would write a notebook, and I would go out and get that. I think you get Databricks free for 90 days if you haven't already done that, and um, and you could write a notebook that goes and uses the request library to hit those APIs to get that data, pull the data into a S3 bucket or a ADLS, depending on which one you have your Databricks tied to, and go through and do your transformations. Be sure that you're, push that data up into your Delta Lake, right? Into Delta Lake table, into Delta tables, and and create your, modeling. Separate things out into dimensions and fact tables. Create your kind of your silver layer, right? Because with Delta Lake, that's what you're doing. It's going to be that bronze, silver, gold kind of layer of data engineering. And within your notebooks, when you're pulling the data, you're using the request library, you're using PySpark to put things into data frames, you're cleaning that data using that PySpark library to do different things, and you are moving things into delta tables and further aggregating that into which is your silver data set, and then further aggregating that into a gold layer um, data set, right? And then I would go through and do the full gambit, right, of going through and creating some type of visualization, whether you're connecting to Power BI or Tableau. I know that's not a huge data engineering role, but it helps you to demonstrate your ability also to kind of tell that data story if you can set up a visualization and show people what that data looks like. So I know that's super high level and is not super specific, but that's kind of where we're at there. All right. How much do the skills of analyst versed in SQL and Python correlate to the role of a DE? I'm getting my degree in analytics at WGU. Hey, congratulations. I also got my master's in data analytics at WGU. But the data engineering role seems very interesting. It, it, so I'm stuttering a little bit here because a data analyst and a data engineer are similar in the fact that there are some overlaps in skill sets. There is also some business acumen. I talked about, for those of you that were here early on, I talked a little bit about the importance of developing some business acumen as you move through your career. But analysts often kind of are quicker about picking up how the data relates to the strategic priorities of the business, because they're usually a little bit closer to the business users than a data engineer. It I always refer to it as the data engineer is like the core of the body, and the analysts are like the face. They're the mouth and the face. They're the people that actually the business sees and talks to. But it doesn't mean that a data engineer can't do the other. Honestly, the data engineers that stand out, that are differentiate themselves from everybody else and that move up into leadership, are the ones that can communicate and demonstrate those same skills that a data analyst it definitely has to use day in day out. But if you're already well versed in SQL and Python, the big thing is, and you're probably equally, if you've been working as an analyst, you're probably equally versed in some data cleansing, at least identifying data that may be bad that needs to be cleansed, and troubleshooting things with SQL, writing efficient SQL queries, writing using different methodologies to do that ETL piece. Even you might be at least investigating, and maybe you have some experience or some insight into. But it I love data engineering. And I have friends that love being an analyst because they love that interaction with the business. And Nathan's here. What's up, dude? Sorry. Super excited when my people come that come all the time. And Nathan, for those of you that don't know, Nathan was on a few weeks back. If anybody out there has experience, especially Karen, especially with your experience as a was Karen as a software developer. If you ever want to jump on here with me, let me know. Ping me, shoot me an email. I'd love to talk to you about live on one of these calls. I think it'd be great for everybody else to hear kind of your experience from a SDE standpoint, and what your journey has looked like into move into data engineering. Okay, sorry, sidetracked. Yeah, the Amara and Nathan, yeah, that numbers game sucks and it's hard, and I feel for you all, but it is a numbers game. You especially Amara with the skill set you already have, you should be able to get there. Um, be sure that you try to remain kind of active and relevant. Okay. Uh, JVV Rex 300. So yeah, a lot of what you do as an analyst does overlap with the data engineer skills of a data engineer. And it, I had a friend in the last kind of consulting role that I was in. She was on the BI team, and she was incredible at creating stored procedures that took the data that we were feeding in and further refining it and cleaning it and kind of moving it into a what I would refer to as a gold layer so that she could more quickly and easily do the Power BI reporting and SSRS reporting that she was working on. Yes, companies still use SSRS. It strikes pain in my heart that they do, but they do. Um, and it and that's generally traditionally more of a data engineer role, right? Creating sprocs, creating Python scripts, creating, writing notebooks that again further refine that data, further clean that data, and get it into a format that you could use for reporting. Um, so you may be even doing some actual data engineering tasks now that directly relate to data engineer roles. I've done something like that before, but the point of showing skills in Kafka is missing, and the bad news about APIs that we don't have here. Yeah, that sucks. What? So Mad Max, maybe the question is users, courses, instructions. Build system around users, courses, instructions, students. Yeah, uh, I agree with Nathan there. That whatever that access is to that data that you have, whether it be a CSV sitting on a website, even if you have to write some Python to do like some web scraping to get the name of the CSV file, I've had to do sometimes to be able to pull the CSV file and then import it. There are methods that you could use and yes, we are still leaving out that Kafka piece, especially from a database standpoint. I'm not sure. Yeah, start with the schema, create the table, uh, and it, it actually sounds like great um, a great project because sometimes you have to figure these things out. Um, and as a data engineer, you have to figure out how to get to the data. You have to figure out what that authentication or access needs to look like. You have to figure out and understand what that data looks like to be able to, like Nathan's explaining here, create the schema, create the table, um, you know, make sure that your data types are set up appropriately, make sure that, again, no APIs sucks. And sometimes a different method, you have to use some type of different methodologies uh, to get to the data. Sometimes you could still write some Python script to get to the data and dump it into and extract it and put it into like an S3 bucket or an ADLS container, or, a blob container. But and then from there it's pretty straightforward. But you still miss out the Kafka piece. Trying to think about how you'd necessarily integrate Kafka into that project. Um, I still think it's a great project and worthwhile, but I might have to think more about that. Honestly, to know how to integrate Kafka, I think I'd have to see what the data looks like and see where it's at right now. Um, but Nathan is all about it here. He's given some great feedback as well. So Nathan, man, you are always a wealth of information. I appreciate you helping out. Yeah, maybe tell us, like Nathan said, tell us about how you would like to use, how you envision using Kafka in this particular project. Uh, about reverse engineering here. Yeah, it that makes sense. Sometimes it is, and not just for that project. That um, when I was at my last company that I helped out, they would get CSV files that they would dump in from uh, that the vendors would dump into like an SFTP, and we had to understand where some of that data came from sometimes, and reverse engineer how they got to the data so that we could make sure and validate things like that. But awesome. Great conversation tonight. We are definitely nearing the top of the hour. We have a ton of people out there. Thank you all for joining. What other questions? It's been a great conversation. Mad Max, Nathan, Nathan, always appreciate you being here, man, and helping out with the conversation and really pushing along. Amara, I wish you the best of luck. If you have, if there's anything that the community or I can help you do, be sure to reach out. I'm happy to try to help you out as much as I can. Um, and everybody, Karen, Ezekiel, thank you all so much for being here, for asking questions, for interacting with me. Hey, Vincent, man, Vincent, woo! Good morning, sir. Uh, hope you're doing well. So, any final questions before I kind of wrap this up and probably go hang out with my wife for a little bit? I've seen that project, the API that process weather data. It's a good project to get you kind of exposed to some of those methodologies and tools. Um, thank you, Nathan. Um, no, no. Okay. So, not to confuse anybody, data engineers generally do not create APIs with the kind of newer concept of data contracts. Sometimes we will, because from a perspective of data contracts, sometimes we're ingesting data and other parts of the business, like software developers and dev groups, also need access to that same data or similar data. And sometimes, in order to uh, Nathan, always excited to hang out with y'all on Friday nights. Um, but sometimes, in order to expose that data to the rest of the business, APIs has become, especially with the kind of the concept of data contracts coming out and being more prevalent. Um, we'll build APIs in order to expose that data to other parts of the business, and then those other parts of the business can just hit those APIs to get data, right? And so that's kind of the concept of data, of API driven pipelines and data contracts, but at a super high level without getting too into it. But it's generally not what a data engineer does. We hit APIs that other PIC companies have made. For instance, one of my projects was with Nice, with a company called Nice. They do kind of call recording and things like that. And they have a Swagger site and a whole list of, for those of you that don't know, a Swagger site is kind of like a data dictionary for APIs for a specific kind of group of APIs for a company. But they have a Swagger site, and I had to go through and figure out what data that I needed from that list of APIs, basically, and then I had to write scripts to go out and grab that data, extract that data from those APIs. It comes back as generally JSON. Sometimes in this particular case, some of it came back as JSON, some of it came back as MP4 files because I was pulling the audio recordings and video, the video and audio recordings of the calls. And then I would take that and dump it into a ADLS container and then ingest the metadata from the audio file as well as the JSON data that I needed to pull, and then put that into our data warehouse. So while we don't necessarily build APIs, it is understanding APIs is incredibly important. Whether API is difficult, look at the data pipeline. Loosely visual output. Currently in SQL Python infinite loop. Oh no! Like I'm solving too many queues in leak code. Get out of leak code, dude. But when should I stop solving them, and what should I learn next? Data warehouse or Hadoop, Scala, or any other? Data warehousing is incredibly important, dude. You need to jump on that if you want to be a data engineer. Understanding data warehousing, just in concept, is super important. So I would go there before you jump into like a Scala or a Hadoop. And honestly, I jump into from data warehousing. I jump into Spark, just because Spark's a little bit more prevalent now for big data. Or Scala. I mean, Scala's useful. Spark's the big thing right now. There has been for a while. I don't see it going away. But Scala you could use, or R. But some data files. Structure of the data. Guys, this has been a great conversation. It is 11 o'clock. I'm gonna jump. I would love nothing more. I think that Nathan's part of our Discord as well, but I would love nothing more for you all to also be part of the Discord. So for those of you that are here tonight, if you want to continue this conversation with everybody on the Discord, I have a Discord set up specifically for our community. And I could drop the link in the chat if you want to be part of the Discord, and you all could continue this conversation there if you want a place to continue this conversation after the call. Let me grab the never expire noise a bit. Link copy. For anybody that wants to join the Discord, there's the link. It's in the chat. Jump on our Discord. Y'all could continue this conversation. I'm trying to get people over to the Discord so that we could continue to have these conversations. So excited that you all have been so incredibly helpful to each other tonight. Really, thank you so much for jumping on. I hope that you're getting something out of the content that I'm putting out. And if you ever have any suggestions on future content, be sure to let me know. Reach out to me either via email or via the community tab. And other than that, we do these on Friday evenings at 10 p.m. Join me. I am, as you see, I try to answer these questions as much as I can. And the rest of the community does a great job, especially Nathan. Thank you so much for jumping in and helping people as well. But again, feel free to take this over to the Discord. I will approve your your requests and jump on there. Feel free to jump on there, and I think a few people have. Thanks, guys. Be sure to jump on there and continue the conversation. I will see you all again next week. Again, super excited to have you here. Let me know your feedback, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.